I invite you to stand as we hear today's gospel. The Holy Gospel according to St. John. Glory to you, O Lord. Now, if you've been following along with us so far since Easter Sunday, we've had these post-resurrection stories of Jesus. This is still the season of Easter, and this is a resurrection story, but it goes back a little further into John chapter 10. We hear these words from Jesus. Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter by the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in another way is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of a stranger. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, and they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, and the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved, and will go out and come in and will find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life, and may have it abundantly. This is the gospel of our Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. Well, since it's such a good one, let's just hear it again. I came that you may have life and may have it abundantly. Abundantly, we hear Jesus say. That's a real contrast, I think, for a lot of us in ways in our lives, and I wonder how often it feels like that is the biggest piece of good news we could ever stand to hear. Because more often perhaps than we would prefer, so much of life feels like it is not enough. That there is something lacking and something missing in our lived experience, and we long for more of abundance from the good and gracious and generous hand of God. Perhaps we experience not enough time in our lives. There's not enough hours in the day, we say. We perhaps might experience not enough money to make ends meet, to figure out how we want to pursue the kind of life that we would like for ourselves or the kind of opportunities we hope for our children. Maybe we even say that there's not enough love or connection in our lives, that we long for a deeper sense of friendship or family in our lives and in our experience. Maybe we long for more opportunities to advance where we would like to be in our lives, or to find something new that is more deeply fulfilling for us. Or perhaps what's not enough is support that we need and long for in our lives, like mental health support or physical health support. We know that statistically both of those things the need is increasing, and there is just simply, it seems, not enough to go around. All of those not enough experiences, of course, are external to us, things that we hope to connect with or find in our lives. There's also an internal sense, perhaps, of not enough that we might feel. We hope, perhaps, that we have enough talent or skill to make it in this world and reach our goals and make an impact and a difference on the lives of others. Or maybe internally we wonder and fear that we are not enough in terms of our worth and our value and what others see and appreciate in our lives. Or maybe a sense of feeling not enough has to do with your inherent dignity and sense of self in the world and in relation to the people that you love. Yet there's still other types of not enough experiences that we might have, the interpersonal kind. Again and again, I hear all of us and people beyond our church lament that there is not enough listening in this world, that we're not quick to open communication with others, and we are quick to judgment and to harsh words of criticism and critique. There is not enough listening and communication to go around. Or perhaps we lament yet another situation of injustice in this world, and we long that there would be more justice and peace for all people truly. And it seems that there is just never enough of that in our lives. How relatable is it for us to look out at the world and fear that there is not enough, to look deep within and fear that we are not enough, and to observe the spaces between us and say that this too is not enough and there is something lacking here between us? This is a message of scarcity, that there is never enough, that there hasn't been enough, and that there won't be enough. Scarcity can look like fear. Scarcity is a lie about limitations. Scarcity is a mentality based on problems instead of solutions. Scarcity sees first what is lacking or what is holding you back. Scarcity thrives on separation, and scarcity ultimately leads to what kills us physically and proverbially. We fear there is not enough in this life. And when we operate out of this kind of scarcity mentality, life starts to feel like not living at all. Perhaps then more merely we are just existing, just putting one foot in front of the other and getting by day to day. Have you felt this? Have you experienced this in your life? Perhaps on a short or long-term basis? Well, we hear today in John chapter 10 that Jesus announces prophetically and boldly and compassionately as a shepherd that there is more to life than just getting by. That God has bigger dreams for you, for us, and for the world than just survival, than simply existing. God has bigger hopes and dreams for the world and for each of us and for all of us as a community than just making ends meet and just getting by one day after another. Jesus announces in John chapter 10, verse 10, that God's desire for us and for everyone is not scarcity, but is abundance. That there is more to life than simply getting by. That Jesus has bigger plans for us than simply existence. We hear that God intends for us and for the whole world a life of thriving and fullness and well-being and deep and abiding joy. And that is what abundance looks like. Abundant life looks like trusting in God and one another, that temporary or perhaps not so temporary suffering will come to pass, and that God has a way of bringing healing and wholeness to us and to the world. An abundant life looks like seeing the possibilities of what God might and probably will do for us in the future. An abundant life looks like seeing the plenty of what God has provided, even when there are things that perhaps are still lacking. An abundant life looks like insisting on moving forward rather than feeling stuck in a place that is not working. Abundant life means drawing on our connections between us so that we can do more together and have more together and be stronger together than we are when we are alone. An abundant life often leads us into a place of generosity because instead of seeing limitation, we see how much God has blessed us with, and we know that the heart of God calls us to share with one another in our time of need. God offers us and calls to us and beckons us forward into abundance. But I'll clarify that abundance, in the way Jesus talks about it at least, does not mean having a lot of stuff or living in a life of excess or prosperity in terms of accruing more and more just for me, myself, and I, perhaps at the borderline of hoarding, right? The kind of abundance that Jesus offers us in John 10:10 is a life that is lived in safety and joy and propels forward to generosity. The kind of abundant life Jesus has for us is marked by a mutual interdependence that knows that we can lift each other up instead of forcing one another down through competition and survival of the fittest. The life of abundance that Jesus has for us is a life of goodness and mercy, of knowing others and being known in return, of living in a world that is both held and free in the safety of the ones who love us and whom we love. God offers us and creates for us and with us this life of abundance. So when Jesus says today in this story from John chapter 10 that he is the gate for the sheep, we hear that Jesus is our good shepherd who provides safety and protection and well-being and a life of thriving and flourishing for his precious sheep, the ones he loves and cherishes and adores. But Jesus doesn't only say that he's the good shepherd, he says, I am the gate for the sheep. A gate that opens up and allows the sheep to go forth and explore and experience the fullness of all that life has to offer, including the joys, but it also includes the risks and the possibilities of what are the difficulties in life. But Jesus, the gate, also promises us to provide a place where we can come home to, a place where we can rest, a place where we can rest in the safety of God's loving care and the hand of God's protection. So when I think about Jesus offering us this abundant life, I remember the words of Psalm 23. Let's go one more. Where Jesus says to us, and listen for abundance as you hear it this time. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. There's so much abundance that we hear in this image of Jesus, our good shepherd, leading us to green pastures beside still waters, and prepared a place for us at a banquet table. And yet Psalm 23 names for us what abundance is and where it is found. Psalm 23 tells us that even though we walk through the dark valleys, we fear no evil. Even though we perhaps may be surrounded by our enemies, there is still a place for us with God and in God's care. And so when we think about the abundant life that Jesus has for us, I think often it is found in the even though of Psalm 23. Even though we face sufferings and challenges and tragedies, God is still there with us. Even though life is certainly not always a walk in the park or full of sunshine and rainbows, it is not often comfortable for us. God, even though, is still persisting with us, providing this life of goodness and fullness and so much more than simply our sufferings or our difficulties. Even though we face these things, and we do, God remains. God persists with us and with the world, broken and flawed though it may be. God has abundance, even when we see scarcity. So, people of God, whatever might feel scarce for you in this time, perhaps for a very long time, whatever has felt like there is no end in sight, or that God is taking far too long to right what feels wrong to you, hold on. God is working, perhaps in the long game, for abundance for all of us together, for each of us, and for the whole world. That is resurrection life. New life after scarcity. New life when it feels like there has not been and perhaps never will be enough. New life that is full of God's love and grace and mercy for you and for all people. That is resurrection. And in the resurrection hope of Jesus Christ, we say thanks be to God. Amen.